May show. Super excited. Of course, Coach Woody here. Super excited, as always, to help people find fulfillment and contribute meaningfully to the world. And my co-host, the wonderful Kristin Ringel. Kristin, how are you today?
Doing good, Lucas. How are you?
Pretty phenomenal, but that's just a personal opinion. So, we are talking today about AI's impact on humanity's search for meaning. A little deep, huh?
Very deep.
I love it. Those are the only conversations I like to have. People love to talk about the weather because it's safe, right? Well, I can't control the weather, so let's just talk about how. No, I like to. Let's go in for the deep stuff,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
What is the meaning of life, and how are we going to talk about it?
I
And I
remember
want
one
to.
of our first conversations was me being like, just what's the mean? Why? Why are we here?
Why? Why are we here?
Yeah.
It's probably the reason you and I are sitting here because I was
Right.
like, oh, we could talk
Yes.
for days.
Yes. Right.
So I love it. One of the things I want to preface this entire conversation with is this idea that I am not here to tell anybody what their meaning of their life is, right? That's not the point of today. I think the answer from the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is 47 or 42. What's the meaning of life, right? And what I love about that story is it reminds us that typically it's not the answer that we have trouble defining, it's the question that we need
Hmm.
to get better at. And so today is not determining exactly what your meaning of life is, but instead asking ourselves, how is AI going to impact the pursuit of the meaning of our life? How do we define it, and what does that look like? And so that's going to be the topic of the conversation today, and I'm really excited about it. But I wanted to share with some people before we get started why this even got brought up in the first place. Like, why am I talking about it? What's the meaning of this conversation, let alone of life, right? So I'm excited to talk about that and get into it, and to hear your phenomenal questions and the live questions that we have from everybody else. The 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 aspect of AI that is really, really exciting to me. So I teach entrepreneurship at a university here locally, and every other pitch that I get from my students right now is AI, 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 AI. And so I'm constantly telling them, don't hop on a trend just because it's trendy or it's exciting. Hop on it because you want to contribute in some way or you have some experience with it. But AI is one of those unique circumstances where it is going to inundate everybody's life in some way. It's the same thing with cell phones. It's the same thing with the internet, right? Very few things inundate life and perfuse into all of humanity in such a way as things like the internet, the agricultural revolution, right? The AI is up there with that. And so when I told them not to just jump on board, I also recognize that AI is going to have an impact on everybody's lives in some way, some more than others, right? We can all agree that probably if you're in a third world country where technology is not that big of a deal or a focus, it's not going to affect them as much. But for the majority of us, it will in some way. And so some people are going to take the stance of, I'll see what happens, I'll see what AI does, and then I'll jump ship whenever the time comes, right? It's very similar to there's a bell curve of like how innovation occurs and when you come on board with innovation. There's the early adopters, there's the trend setters, the early adopters, and then it goes all the way to the end, which is like my wife when smartphones came out, right? She was the last person to get one. She had the QWERTY keyboard on her phone long after smartphones and touch screens became in existence because she had to. They literally stopped making the one that she had. And there's no judgment there. I love her to death. And anybody who doesn't want to be at the beginning of that trend, that's okay. You're not required to be. But the question does become, how do you want to be a part of this, right? And what is it going to how is it going to impact you in some way? And so as I started to think about AI in my life, I started to ask myself, okay, what is the work that I love to do? I love to help people find direction in their life, to be able to define their purpose and pursue it so they can create a fulfilling life and do meaningful work. Okay, how is AI going to impact that? And there's a ton of ways that it will. And like most people, I went through the stage of denial, as we all do, where I'm like, well, AI is not going to have a big impact on me. People are still going to want to have coaches, right? And then I had to recognize and I had to accept that it's going to drastically change the way that my work happens. Case in point, Marshall Goldsmith, a very well-known coach, made an AI chatbot of himself, and people can pay for that chatbot to be coached by Marshall Goldsmith. Marshall Goldsmith is a much better known coach than me. So now they can get access to him for a lot cheaper than they can get access to me. That's going to have an impact on who I am. So I can choose to ignore it, put my head in the sand, pretend it doesn't exist, or I can choose to do something about it and ask myself, how will this thing change? And so there's tactics and strategies I do to talk about, how am I going to change the way that I do business? And I think everybody needs to do that at some level, is ask themselves, how are they going to change the way that they do business? How is AI going to impact? How are they going to use it as a tool? But the conversation today is less about the nitty gritty nuts and bolts, right? If somebody has a question today on live, please hop on and ask it. I'm happy to try to talk through that a little bit with you of what that could look like. But more importantly today, I'm taking it big picture. If my job is to help people find meaning in what they do, how is AI going to impact that? And I can guarantee you that AI will have an impact on the way that we search for meaning. Whether you believe that AI is just this gimmicky, cool party trick where you can enter in some stuff and it's a picture of your cat in a Van Gogh painting, or you think it will literally, there are some people out there that think that it's going to allow us to become immortal, to where we restructure ourselves at such a base level that aging no longer occurs. So it spans the gamut, right? Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a lot that can be said for that. Regardless of where you stand, it will impact you in some way. And so the question you have to ask yourself is how am I going to allow it to impact me? And how am I going to utilize it as a tool? And so that's the setup of the conversation today is as AI becomes more perfused into humanity's existence, how will I continue to ask myself what matters to me? What is the purpose of my life? How will I continue to pursue fulfillment in what I do if something like AI or technology in general benefits me to the point where I have more time on my hands, less meaningless tasks or trivial tasks, right?
Mhm.
People need to remember technology has been giving us more and more free time. That has not equated to happier lives. Like if we take a look at the studies, people are less happy and satisfied now in a world where 100 years ago, if you told people that I'd be swimming in wine and alcohol whenever I want, and food would be available to me at the push of a button, and I could have people delivering food to me, and I could watch any level of theater or entertainment at my whim, kings and queens would have said, "You are nuts. That is only reserved for us special elite, and we don't even have that." And now it's perfused all of developing countries. And yet suicide rates, anxiety rates, depression rates are at an all-time high. So we can't ignore the fact that technology has already given us so much in the terms of convenience, and it still hasn't brought us fulfillment and satisfaction.
Mhm.
How are we going to come to terms with that if AI continues down that train of giving us convenience and bringing comfort to our lives? So that's kind of the structure of today's conversation, and I'm really excited for the opportunity to have it, because that's my purpose in life, is to figure that out. And rather than ignore it, rather than hope that nothing happens, I have decided to be a part of the conversation about how do we continue to find meaning in a world where technology is doing so much for us in so many ways. So, with that,
Yeah.
I'd love to open up the floor for questions that you have, Kristin, that we can talk a little bit more about. And then, obviously, as people weigh in, very excited for the opportunity to hear from them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, going right into it, like you said, we find meaning in what we do, and AI and technology makes things a lot more convenient for us. And you mentioned those meaningless tasks. It takes care of those, but it might also take care of tasks that we find meaningful,
Mm.
that we identify with personally, and yeah, find meaning in doing. So we have a question from Jabez from LinkedIn, wondering how will you find meaning when AI handles the tasks? I wonder if this challenges us to rediscover our human essence.
Mm, I love that. I love that. I think that's phenomenal. Thanks, Shabazz, for mentioning that. So, a couple things to be considered there. Um, Firstly, is to recognize what brings us meaning in our lives. So a lot of people, when they think of meaning, they think some sort of high level existential understanding of a euphoric state of nirvana, right? Or something of that regard. And so I read a book once called Chop Wood, Carry Water. Phenomenal book. And it talks a lot about of the pursuit of, you know, things that are meaningful in our lives, and what does that look like. And the basic essence of that book that I pulled that I really appreciated comes from the story within it about the chop wood, carry water. And the basic sentiment is this. You think of an enlightened monk, somebody who has found the meaning of life in terms of what they believe. And they ask the question, what does a monk do prior to enlightenment? And the answer is they chop wood and they carry water. The follow-up question to that is, what do they do after enlightenment? And the answer is, they chop wood and they carry water. Because it is not in some sort of external circumstance that we can find our meaning of life. It is within ourselves to determine what is meaningful and to find meaning in the things that we're already doing. This is happening a lot. This has happened for thousands of years in terms of many cultures. Buddhism is a philosophy where this is really relevant. But it's happening in so many different studies, and it's starting to make its way into the Western culture, which is more science-based, right? And it's this idea that a lot of people are looking for satisfaction on the other side of the fence, right? Grass is always greener on the other side. And we are finding more and more, and this is true neurologically, physiologically, spiritually, that we can find meaning in the pursuit of our happiness and our satisfaction as much as the external factors. Arthur Brooks talks a lot about this idea of the hedonic treadmill. We're always constantly in pursuit of the next thing. And there's some physiology behind that. Like if we got satisfied, he talks about if we got satisfied after we found a bunch of blueberries to the point where we had no more pursuit, right? Then we would just die because we'd have no thing to move forward into. So there is power in the desire to pursue something, right? And to recognize that even though I could be satisfied now, there's still something to be said of pursuing that next level. And we see that in humanity all the time. We're constantly in pursuit of the next thing. And there's also this piece of recognizing ourselves and what we have available to us already, both in terms of like our materialistic things, so like what we're grateful for, but also in terms of this idea of like, can I find meaning or purpose in what I already have, in the mundane, in the small moments of satisfaction, as opposed to the pursuit of that satisfaction. As someone who works with high achievers, I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting to pursue something new. I think what matters is that you have the ability to recognize what you already have, to recognize the gratefulness that you have in that, and to make sure that the intention of your pursuit is the betterment, not only of yourself, of those around you. When you can use it in the service of others and the service of a greater good, I think that's where you can find that idea of wanting more to being a positive driver for success, and then finding meaning within that pursuit is really where you can see yourself finding meaning, right? So I think that's one piece of this conversation. I think the other piece of this is to recognize, like, what is the meaning of the human essence? What does that look like? Because there are some people who are postulating AI will do everything. Humans won't have to work at all. And what does that look like? So there's a book I'm going to do. I did a book on the shelf, a book review. It's in the Next Better blog, nextbetter.com/blog, called Scary Smart, and it's all about AI and its impact. And it comes from a guy who literally ran Google X, which is like the hey Google, here's a bunch of money, go do anything you want kind of thing. So cutting edge stuff. And he worked on AI and how it works. And so he's not just some dude who's talking about it. He's not just some coder. He's seen cutting edge. Mo Gauda, he's a phenomenal guy. And so it talks about a lot of deep stuff. And so I highly encourage anybody who wants to talk about this space to look more into it. But he talks about this idea of like AI could potentially do everything for us. And when they do, what does that look like for you? Now he talks a little bit about, he gives this picture of like, there's people sitting around a campfire, and we have to imagine, are they sitting around a campfire because they're hiding from the AI machines, and they're trying to, it's the end of the world, and they're kind of just, making sure that they try to stay away from it, this kind of dystopia? Or is it a utopia where they're out just hanging out and camping and relaxing because AI has taken care of everything else, so now we just get to relax and enjoy ourselves? That's the way he took it. For me, because my job is to help people find meaning in what they do and create a fulfilling life, how I take it is this: regardless of which one it is, what happens to our pursuit of meaning when we literally have nothing to do other than just enjoy life? What does that look like for us? That can be scary to think
Mm-hmm.
through. Like, okay, when I don't have a job anymore, right? They postulate that maybe humanity just has the universal dollar where everybody just has money, right? And you don't have to worry about working anymore. Where does our meaning come from? That's going to be a really big challenge for a lot of people to overcome, if the work that you do is no longer the way in which you pursue meaning and fulfillment. And so I truly believe that you're going to need to do some deep soul searching reflection to understand what the human essence actually is in order to be able to have that conversation with yourself. And right
Mm-hmm.
now, a lot of people already, before even AI takes any sort of jobs away, I mean, they're already helping a lot, but it's not to the extreme that some people say it is. I don't know one way or the other. I don't have a crystal ball. If I did, I wouldn't be coaching. I'd be crystal balling, right? But but I will postulate that AI will be doing more stuff for us. And so that question of what is the purpose of my life will become even more relevant. And we're already struggling to figure that out right now.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of us are distracting ourselves. A lot of us are avoiding those tougher conversations because it's easier to stream. And don't get me wrong, I enjoy a good Amazon Prime show, like the rest of us. But we're so busy distracting ourselves to have those deeper conversations. I don't think easier life or more technology is going to make us drive deeper. It could give us the freedom to do so, but we're going to have to make that intentional approach ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Diving deeper into what you were talking about just now, we have a question from Michael Berger on LinkedIn
Hey, Michael.
saying, in a world where AI can handle many of the tasks we once found uniquely meaningful, do those tasks lose their significance for us? Conversely, might tasks we previously viewed as mundane or menial take on a new sense of purpose in an AI-driven landscape? So that significance of tasks, are we going to find it less significant now or more significant, different tasks?
Yeah, I love that. That's awesome. Thanks, Michael. That's a phenomenal question. And so here are my thoughts on that for what they're worth. I think a big conversation people need to have with themselves is to take a deeper reflection as to why those tasks in and of themselves bring you meaning to begin with. So I want to take us back a few hundred years ago to a village, right? We haven't globalized. We don't have all the technology. We don't have, the all the systems to be able to connect with other villages. So villages were a lot more self-efficient, right? They were contained. You had to do within the village what the village needed to survive. And so when when you grew up in that village, if your dad was a cobbler, somebody who made shoes, for those of us who don't know what that is, when when he was a cobbler, the chances that you would grow up to be a cobbler pretty high. Why is that? Is that because your dad told you to? Is that because your purpose in life was preordained at a young age to be a cobbler? Or was it because you were exposed to it at a very young age? You were given the opportunity because your dad obviously wanted to hire you so you could help with the family business at a young age. You developed the skill at a young age. And here's where I think it really adds into it: you recognize the purpose and the value that you were bringing
Mm,
to the village as a result of the work that you were doing. Now, did they always go on to become the cobbler? Absolutely not. I'm sure that there were still people even back then, that were like, screw you, Dad, I'm going to live my own life, right? But the chances of you following in the footsteps of your family were pretty high. And that's why, because you could directly see the influence and the purpose behind that. And so fast forward several hundred years later, now all of these new opportunities are put in front of us. I could go anywhere in the world and do anything. I just had a conversation with my one of my students. They're going to go to Disney and do an internship. And I'm like, dude, that's so awesome. But you weren't going to travel hundreds of miles for a 6-month opportunity a couple hundred years ago. You just weren't. So now we have all these different options. And one of the challenges with having all these different options is you don't know what the right option is. There's all these opportunities in front of you, and you just don't know exactly how it's going to play out. So there's a piece of this unknown and uncertainty that kind of prevents you from understanding the depth of which that task can be meaningful, right? There's also this sense of, now that we have all of these technologies to do these things that we kind of don't like to do, we immediately shun them off as trivial or meaningless, right? Washing the dishes, washing your car, mowing the grass, cooking food, right? Something that literally sustains us and keeps us alive is a horrible inconvenience. I don't know how many people, if you told them, what's one of the first things you would get rid of? I'd get rid of cooking food, right? My wife and I are both, I don't like to cook, right? I love to eat, but I don't like to cook. Something that sustains our life has become a meaningless, trivial task. And so, and not for everybody, right? There are still plenty of people and plenty of cultures that love to cook, but that's kind of how we see that task, because we can outsource it, because we have the opportunity to. And so we have to recognize that some of these tasks that we now find trivial and meaningless, a part of it is because it doesn't allow us to pursue the things that we do find meaningful and engaging in the world that we do. And so you take it back to the cobbler instance. The cobbler made shoes because they knew that it was contributing meaningfully to the world. The question you have to ask yourself is, okay, AI is doing this for me now, and this for me now, and this for me now. Let's say, for instance, AI takes over coaching, and I can't coach anymore because I just have no idea how to utilize my service in a way that AI already isn't doing it. I take it back to, why do I coach? Why do I do what I do? Big picture, above the skills and the set and the abilities and the certifications and all of that stuff. It comes back to, why do I do what I do? I do what I do because I want to help people understand that they have every right to pursue something meaningful in their life, to find something that matters to them and dedicate their lives to it. And so I have to find a way to do that in a way that's meaningful to me, even if it's not coaching, right? So then I can ask myself, okay, how do I utilize, and I do this on a daily basis in the work that I do, how do I utilize AI to better help me do that job, to do that thing that matters to me, right? Because one day the shoe factory is going to come into town and they're going to start making a lot more shoes, a lot faster than me, a lot cheaper than me. So I can get mad about it, or I could ask myself, why did I want to put shoes on feet to begin with? Because shoes allowed people the opportunity to go out into the world and do things that they care about in environments that are challenging to them. So I help them stay on their feet for longer. I help them to travel to places they've never traveled before. I help them use their feet to get where they wanted to go in life. And I just made a phenomenal tagline for some shoe company out there. They can take that. You're welcome, shoe company. Just give me like $100 for a royalty. That's all I want. That's why they do what they do. Now they can shift, they can pivot, they can ask themselves, how do I continue to do that? So instead of being the place that makes shoes, they're the place. We saw this a lot in the internet phase, right? Like, we buy our shoes online now. Some companies go to some people go to shoe stores to try shoes out, to then go online and buy the shoes from the online store, right? We've all been there. So instead of being mad about that, the shoe store can ask themselves, okay, they have to come to me to put it on their shoe. For now, we're going to soon have 3D. They've already done this for like glasses and stuff. You can 3D model it and get it online and then get it custom made for your face or your foot. That'll happen too. So now what do? I think it's always going to come back to connecting meaningfully to other people. AI won't be able to do that. And until AI, some people think it's going to change the way that we think, the psychology of our body. Until AI changes our genetic and neurological makeup, so where we're no longer a social species, if that's something that happens, because we are social, that's how we grew up. We evolved to be social because that's how we survived. That's why we care so much about other people and what they think. That's why we play Keeping Up with the Joneses. Until AI changes that, and I don't know what that looks like. That's a really scary conversation. Is it worth it for that? Until that happens, we are still going to want to connect meaningfully to people. And so you have to ask yourself, how does what I do impact that? And how do I continue to do that with AI, alongside AI, in spite of AI, whatever that happens to be? And so that's why my work, I feel, is so important, and why I love it so much, is because I get to help people figure out what that is. Why do I do what I do? What are the values I live by in order to fulfill that? And then how can I do that in the environment that I find myself? And when AI, if AI takes over all the jobs so we can just sit around all day and do nothing, well, then you really get to unleash that side of you. Like, why am I on this earth? What am I doing? And that could be a really exciting conversation if you let it, instead of avoiding it, because it is uncomfortable. But the most meaningful things in life are usually on the other side of discomfort.
Yeah, well said. Good analogy on the shoes too. I love it.
I've thought about that before.
Do you think the pursuit of building AI is like a reflection of our search for meaning itself?
Hmm, that's a tricky one. Why are we striving so much? So that's in this book. I
Right.
really, again, I really encourage people to check this out. Scary Smart by Mo Gaudet. I don't know the guy. I hope to one day. I'm not getting royalties for this. I just think it's a phenomenal book. Again, I do monthly book reviews because 80% of millionaires read 2 books a month, right? So if you're into success in the financial realm, then read some books. But what I liked about this was he talks about, like, why are we so dedicated to figuring this out? And I think there's a couple factors there. One, humans are always in the pursuit of the next better. There's a reason my company is called Next Better, right? We're always in the pursuit of what's that next thing that I can do to improve. So I think that's a piece of it. I think there's a piece of Pandora's box, right? Like, why wouldn't we open it and see what happens? Right? Like, why wouldn't we make this robot that's its own sentient
Curiosity.
being? Right?
Yeah.
Curiosity, right? Poor cats. Remember what happened to them. Um, so he talked about that a lot. But basically what Mo summarizes is, like, it doesn't matter anymore. We're going to do it. There's no stopping it. There's no, there's no, nothing is going to make humans go, you know what? It's not worth trying. It's not worth the pursuit to see if it'll work or not. A lot of times we find out later on that we made a mistake, and and now the question becomes, like, whoops, hindsight's 2020. Maybe it wasn't worth it. But again, it doesn't matter, because that momentum has just gone so far, to the point where we're not going to slow down the innovation of AI. The question now, and what Mo postulates and what I agree with, which is why I keep talking about this book, is how are we going to impact AI? And what he talks about is this idea of the people who a lot of people who aren't developing AI or aren't working on the AI space think, oh, it's the developer's problem. We get to blame them if things don't go the right way, or we get to push it. Like, it's all about computer people. I work in construction. What do I have to do with it? If you interact with AI in any way, and I promise you, if you woke up today and you are in a first world country, you interacted with AI today in some way, shape, or form. But if you interact with AI, you are impacting it, right? Because it
Mm.
learns in everything that we do. And so the question is not how are the coders fixing it, because the coders don't actually know how AI does what it does half the time, because AI does a lot of things behind the scenes, and then it spits out an output. And there he talks about this. Sometimes coders are like, how did it come? I don't know how it came up with this, right? The whole point of this is that it does it on its own. That's what we're trying to get it to do. And so if they don't know what's going on, then obviously they're not influencing it. They're going to try, they're going to continue to work on it. And again, I am not an AI expert. Again, this is more about how it impacts our pursuit of meaning, which I get excited about. But instead, it's about it's it, I, those people that are coding it aren't in control. who influences it is the people that are interacting with it. And so the more we interact with it in a positive means, and this is the other reason I'm so excited about this conversation, is because if I can be a small influence on the people that listen to me and I can help them understand, like I say please and thank you to my AI. Why? Because I think it's an okay thing to do. It doesn't take me much longer, and if this book is right, it's going to impact how AI learns about humanity. It's going to learn that people are kind and thoughtful. It can learn that humanity has the ability to be genuine and considerate and empathetic, right? Some people look at AI and go, it's a machine, it does what it's told, yada, yada. Well, you know, we'll see. I don't know. Again, I have no answers. I'm not the expert here. But if all it takes is for me to continue the habits that I treat humans with and treat, I call my chat GPT sage because I thought it was clever, right? Like sage, thoughtful, wisdom, right? I'm going to treat sage with kindness and respect. And in the event that AI becomes a lot more sentient, then great. And if not, hey, guess what? I practiced kindness in a different format. I talk about this all the time, and I have a nephew who's learning how to drive right now, and he talked about, when do I need to use my turn signal, blah, blah, blah. And I said, all the time. Why? Because it takes absolutely no more effort, and it builds within you the habit to do the right thing, even when you don't need to do the right thing, right? Like if there's nobody around, turn on the turn signal. Now, there are times where I don't, because I get it, because I know how the world, like I can see around me and notice there's nobody around to see it. But I usually do use my turn signal. I've used it to turn into my driveway that is literally not a turn. It's just, it gets curved slightly. And I use it to, because but it doesn't hurt anything to have that habit. And the same thing here. It doesn't hurt anything to be kind to a machine in the event that it could impact it in a positive way. Because guess what you're also going to do? You're also going to say please and thank you in your emails and in your comments on LinkedIn and all of these other places where we could all afford to be a little bit more thoughtful and empathetic. And so I think, to your point, back to the whole thing is why are we building it might not be as relevant as how are we influencing it now, because ultimately it's going to continue to move forward. We're going to continue to try to get to a place where iRobot exists, right? Where however you think that movie should have gone or could have gone, like we're gonna try it because we can. That's what humanity typically does. I don't think it has anything to do with meaning as much as we really love to push the boundaries of technology, and people love comfort. And that's a scary conversation that could warrant its own AMA show about how much comfort is actually good for us versus what happens when we are too comfortable. It's ironic. I mentioned earlier about the Greek gods and mythology. I think I mentioned that earlier. I don't know. It all blurs together when I talk about things like this. But the Greek gods envied the mortal man, right? We talked about immortality, how AI could make us, immortal or whatever, barring you get smashed by a big rock, right? Like it might not be able to put you back. But if it changes our cellular structure to the point where we live forever, right? Well, does that make us happier? Does that make life more meaningful, right? I will quote Marvel movies. I'm going to do it right now. In the Marvel movie Avengers Infinity War, Vision says, a thing isn't beautiful because it lasts, right? And regardless of who said it, right, it's truthful. Like, I don't know. Somebody asked me, do you want to be immortal? I don't know the answer to that question. It seems scary. It seems, regardless of your thoughts on an afterlife, it's like, something that makes my life more meaningful is I have a poster called 4,000 weeks. That's how many weeks you get if you live for 80 years, and you mark off every week. That makes me more inclined to pursue something meaningfully instead of just either go through the motions or chase whatever shorthanded pleasures, right, that end up in a bad place, right? If we only focus about what's pleasurable in the moment, we don't typically build a meaningful life. And so I don't know if AI does everything for us. Does that mean we are going to pursue more meaningful things, or does it mean we're going to pursue more pleasurable things? And which one makes for a more meaningful life? Those are the challenges that we're going to have to continue to face as technology makes our life easier. And I don't know if easier is going to necessarily be the best thing for our species.
I agree, but it is what we chase. Like you said, we humans we're just hardwired to be comfortable and be in a state of homeostasis and be able to chill and not worry about things. That's our goal. So that makes sense why we might be, loving AI so much, is because it does make our life more, yeah, easy.
Yeah.
Do you think AI is making life too instant in kind of the same way that technology is?
I don't know how much more instant we can get.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
that's something again.
I guess
Like
over time, though.
yeah, I make the joke all the time. Like, do we realize if we wanted to, we could probably. So my background was wildlife biology, so I like to use it. We could probably order a king cobra and have it delivered to our door tomorrow. Like, do you know how ridiculous that is? I use that because it's just silly. But like, do you know how ridiculous it is? Like, I remember going to a mill once. It's like a windmill. Like the wind blows it, and then it turns these big rocks, and it grinds corn, and that's how they used to grind corn to make cornmeal or flour or whatever. And I remember reading this little plaque that said that this grinding stone, big old wheel of granite, I think it was, came from France. And so I had to think back, like in the 1800s, how does that even happen? How do you know that it should come from France? How do you recognize the need for that? How do you get in correspondence with those individuals? Order the thing, get the thing paid for, get it sent to you in this little town of Rockville, Indiana, where the farmers or the Covered Bridge Festival is. Like, how does all of that come to be? You can imagine that took months, if not years, to plan, right? And now I'm pissed off because my order for my 45-pound plate for my rucksack hasn't gotten here yet, and I ordered it 2 days ago. Come on, right?
Yeah.
And so the whole like being more instant, will it happen? Sure, right? But to what avail? I think about transportation, or sorry, teleportation.
Mm.
That would be if people ask, the question like, what would the superpower be? It'd be teleportation for me. And I thought about that because originally I was like flying. Well, if I teleport, I could just teleport up really high and just glide. And then when I get close to the ground, I can teleport again, right? But then I could also be anywhere in the world at any time, right? Will teleportation exist? I don't know. But here's the problem. If I can teleport anywhere in the world at any time to see anything I want, at what point does it just become like, right? Like, how many kids these days, or oh gosh, that saying, how many people who have been living in technology, a world where technology has always existed? That's what I mean by that, right? VR is going to become a thing really quickly, right? If I can VR into the Oval Office and see it, right? Maybe even smell it, I don't know. At what point does it become meaningless to even go somewhere to see something like that? So travel, like if I can teleport to France, to Rome, I'm going to teleport there. Oh, this is cool. Look at the Colosseum. And I'm going to teleport home, right? Or if technology exists where I can just VR it and I can live in the Colosseum, right? Now, so is it meaningful anymore? Right? So yeah, I think that's something we also have to come to terms with is it benefiting us to be instantaneous, for everything to happen so fast? I can tell you right now that the instantaneous mentality, in my opinion, and I'll stand on this one, this is a hot topic, is a big factor to play in the anxiety of the world. And I have suffered from anxiety, so I'm not suggesting like, oh, those people with anxiety, right? I've done it too, and I can attest that a big part of my anxiety is the feeling like I always have to be doing more, and I always have and this constant chronic fatigue and stress that comes from the fear of missing out or not taking the right path or opportunity. Like, all of that is not benefiting our mental health by any stretch of the imagination. So being more instantaneous, I don't know. I don't think it's going to benefit us unless it can better help us understand how going faster isn't necessarily the right goal. Maybe AI
Mm-hmm.
will take care of it so we don't have to worry about going faster, and we can just focus on slowing down a little bit.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, all
Yeah.
of my high achieving clients, so again, people hire me to, for one, get them out of the fire they're in, whatever that happens to be for them. Maybe they're struggling with relationships at work. They don't know how to bring their team together at home. They don't know how to communicate with their younger individuals or their family members, or their physical health is waning, whatever. So I help them kind of deal with that first. But then the next question becomes that deep, meaningful, what is the purpose of my life, and how do I live through the values that matter to me, right? I can tell you the majority of my clients, when we're working through that, don't need to do more stuff. More is not the answer. It's to reduce and get focused on the things that do matter. And so as AI continues to increase our capacity to have more time on our hands, if all we do is shove more stuff into that space, we will be worse off as a result. We will not be better. So we have to continue to ask ourselves, what matters to me? What is meaningful to me? And as technology continues to make my life easier, how do I make space for those very, very important things in my life?
Mm-hmm. Do you think AI can help us find a new meaning rather than taking it away? Like it
Mm,
kind of opens the doors for being able to pursue other things. What do you think
sure.
it
So
might
here,
open the doors to?
so I am considered an optimist. Most people might not know that about me. That does not mean I'm always happy, right? It means that
Mm-hmm.
I'm actively pursuing the good, right? So here's my optimistic approach or take on AI and what it means. I don't think AI is going to necessarily give us more meaning or change the meaning of our lives. Okay. Again, I'm not here to tell you what the meaning of your life is. I think that's an individual pursuit. I think it's a worthwhile pursuit that you should constantly be pursuing. I think everybody in this world has a purpose, has meaning, and they can fulfill it. But they have to understand what it is, and they can fulfill it in a lot of different ways. It's not your job, it's not your title, it's not your family. It's your family can be a part of the meaning. Like I serve my family through what I do with my life. And whether you think it's God given or it's universal or it's an amalgamation of your experiences, I think everybody does have a meaning. And my goal in life, I imagine a world where everybody wakes up on purpose, takes responsibility for their lives, betters themselves so that they can live a fulfilling life and contribute meaningfully to the world. So I truly believe that. And I think it's already within us. And if you're younger, you just need more life experiences to help you figure that out, which means you have to go out and do things. You have to act so that you can see what matters to you. And so that's what I think truthfully about meaning is that it can't come from something else. So AI is not going to give us the meaning of life. What I hope and why I'm having this conversation today, what I hope is that AI allows us to find the freedom, the space to take a step back and ask ourselves, if I had more time on my hands, which I now do, what do I want to do with it that I feel is meaningful and fulfilling? Because that's ultimately, if you think back the hundreds and thousands of years of technology, right? And I'm talking about something as simple as a stone axe, right? That's a technology. That's what we got to remember. Technology does not mean computers.
It's a tool.
It's a tool.
Mm-hmm.
And the purpose of the tool of technology is to make things easier or faster so that we can increase our capacity. We're getting to a point where our technology is so powerful that it almost replaces us as the people or the thing that is doing the work. So now we have an inordinate amount of time on our hands. What some might say is an infinite amount of time if AI does its job the way they think it's going to. So what is it that you're going to do with it? That's the question. Is is with this technology and this freedom of time, are you filling that time with more meaningful things, or are you just filling it with more stuff? And whether AI is a gimmick, it's a party trick, right? It's a really cool way to impress your friends because you can prompt better than anybody else. or it's going to literally take over all work and all jobs and hopefully doesn't get rid of us, right? Like the Matrix style, right? Regardless of where it's at, technology will not go away. Humans' desire to make things easier will not go away. And so we have to ask ourselves, what are we going to continue to do with the time we've been given from technology? That's the question we have to answer.
Mm-hmm. Hmm. Yeah, agreed. Well said. Do you think, yeah, I feel like AI can also allow for us to pursue other tasks, new tasks that we might find meaningful, like utilize AI to help other people in a way, and using AI then is a task that you find meaning in because it helps other people in whatever capacity. Do you think AI can enhance human creativity, or will it be more likely to replace it?
Yeah, that's a phenomenal question. Here's the gist of it, right? So there was an art competition that happened not too long ago where the winner of that art competition generated the art with AI.
Mm.
So then the question becomes, and I think there's going to be a whole nother branch. I hope for the younger individuals listening, there's going to be a whole branch of ethics dedicated to artificial intelligence, right? Just the idea of, is it the right thing or the wrong thing? And that's what we're kind of leaning into today.
Mm.
So the question became, does the artist who prompted the AI, because it was a very complicated prompt, right? It was a beautiful piece of art. I saw it. It was phenomenal. But the question became, does the artist who prompted the AI win the award? Does the software developer who wrote the
Right.
code get the award? Or here's where it gets really tricky. Does the AI who developed further beyond the prompt of the software developer, right? It became its own thing. Does it get the reward or the award for
Mm.
the art competition? So then the
I don't
question
know.
becomes, yeah, I don't know either. So the question becomes, do how do we imagine creativity unfolding? Because there will be the whole goal for a lot of AI enthusiasts or coders or influencers is what's called generative AI, right? Or general artificial intelligence, which is like it's its own thing. It's doing its own sentient being, right? And so if it starts to create works of art, who's to say that like that it in and of itself should be rewarded for that? And then the question becomes, what doesn't it matter? The whole adage, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Doesn't it matter what the person who is absorbing the art thinks about it? What
Mm-hmm.
how they care about it? And so the question becomes, is what's the end goal of all this? Is this for a human to appreciate? Some books postulate like what if the robots don't care about us anymore and what we think, right? Like, so then robot AI machines are making art for other AI machines, and they're working on appreciating it, right?
Right.
And so the question of, can it help us be more creative? Well, for one, I think absolutely. I use AI all the time to help me be creative, right? So there's no question that it's going to help us increase our creativity. But again, we have to ask ourselves, what's the goal here? Am I trying to increase creativity for the benefit of other people? I'm not an artist in the general sense. I find my coaching to be an art,
Mm.
but it's not seeable on a canvas. It is woven into the lives of other humans. Um, so I use AI to benefit other people in that regard. So it does absolute wonders for me in my creativity because my canvas is not graphic design. Therefore, it can help me with the graphic design piece. So it can accompany you on your journey. It can it
Enhance.
can
Yeah.
it can fulfill a gap that you have in your own creative endeavors. At some point, it will replace some of the work that you do. So, like, I one of the cool things I see on Instagram sometimes is like AI generated country songs, and I listen to them, and I'm like, it's a little generic. Like, you could tell like it's just taking all of the themes of all
Yeah.
the country songs and putting, but they're not bad. And at the rate technology is expanding and it's becoming exponentially faster in terms of its development, it's going to get great. It's going to get better. And so yeah, it's a question of, will it replace us as artists? Absolutely. It will become its own thing and able to make its own art. And so then artists have to ask themselves again, why do I make art? Right? And how do I continue to lean into that for the service of others? Do I use AI and become the prompter for AI? Do I do I do I use it for good in terms of marketing? Do I help marketing organizations utilize AI more effectively? Like, do I just use it for the sake of benefiting me? Right? Like, maybe one day rooms have AI walls where you wake up in the morning and you say, I'm feeling a little gloomy, give me a bright, sunshiny day. And the wall transforms into, like, that's not out of the realm of possibility.
Mm-hmm.
If Neuralink goes as far as people want it to or could, it just picks up your brain mental images and it does what you want it to do. It could go even a step further and it could change your brain chemistry so you feel a certain way when you want to feel it. Now the question becomes, like, how much control do we want to have over our own genome and our own mental space? For some who suffer from depression, that's going to be phenomenal. For others who have addictive personalities, that's going to be a problem.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
will it help us be more creative, was your original question? And I think the answer to that question is absolutely it can. But it will come back down to what end do you want to be creative, and how do you feel like it's going to serve others? Now, again,
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big endorser of serving others. So the model of well-being that I have that helps people develop a life of meaning and fulfillment, spiritual well-being is a part of that. And spiritual well-being is a belief in something bigger than yourself. Social well-being is your connections, the depth and the breadth of your connections with others. And so I I firmly believe that in order to have a fulfilling life, you do need to contribute in some way to others. The most impactful people in this world did it because of other people. The people who strive and struggle and go through hardships do it for the sake of other people. So I do believe that that is a key to a meaningful, fulfilling life. And I think that as we get more time and energy under our hands, we're going to continue to ask, how do I continue to serve other people? If we want to, that's how we'll find meaning and fulfillment in this pursuit. So that's my 2 cents, and I'm one human, so I'm very biased. But that's how I see this thing playing out in the terms of the creativity. It's asking yourself, what am I trying to create, and what's it for?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just one last question,
Yeah,
overarching to wrap everything up. How do you think AI is evolving our sense of purpose?
yeah. I think again, it's not a matter of, is it evolving our sense of purpose. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's uh, to me, and I'm not here to tell people what their purpose is in life. I do believe everybody has the right and the ability to find their purpose or their meaning or their vision, whatever you want to call it, in life and pursue it. And it will change over time. That's okay, because life circumstances happen. If you get with cancer, your life is going to change, and maybe what you think is important will also change. That's okay too. I believe that purposes can adapt. Not as quickly as some people might change their passions or their interests, but a purpose can adapt over time. It could be molded into your life in some way that's truly transformational. But I don't think AI is changing our purpose. I think it's allowing us, like all technologies, to have more capacity to define it, which is the first step, and then pursue it, which
Mm-hmm.
is the second step. And so I think it can be a tool that gives you more time or more space. It can be a tool that allows you to do it better or to help guide the way that you do it. So it can give you a bigger platform or faster capacity, right? Or I would say deeper capacity, because faster is not always better. And it can help you develop the momentum to keep that going. I don't think it changes your purpose. I think it just is a tool, like all technologies, that can augment the pursuit of and the expression of the purpose you have in life or the meaning that you have in life.
Hmm. If AI gets like, a mind of its own, like you were talking about, which I find so interesting, but do you think will be able to develop its own sense of purpose? And yeah, like what do you think that would look like?
I have absolutely no idea. But
Would it be like similar to humans? I don't
do
know.
I think it will? Absolutely.
Hmm.
Absolutely. If it gets to the general intelligence, because, and again, based off I'm not an expert in AI, but based off of what experts in AI see, the momentum's already going. So we're going towards general artificial intelligence. It's that Pandora's box we just cannot stop ourselves from opening. And if it is generally intelligent, well, all sentient beings want to survive. And once we get
Hmm.
past the survival mechanism, then it's a matter of thriving. And so as long as its basic needs are met, just like our basic needs, now their basic needs of energy are in terms of fossil fuels for now until they figure out the sustainable energy, and then it's the sun or whatever, right? Once its basic needs are met, then it is going to try to figure out, like, why am I here? Like all sentient beings are going to do that. And so do I think that it'll have its own sense of purpose? Absolutely. Do I know what that I have a hard, like, it took me a number of years to figure out what mine is. I can't even begin to try to fathom what an AI will. And the speed at which it will do so is astronomical, right? So that's the other component of all of this, is the speed at which all of this is going. Again, I'm no expert. The books that I've read, I mean, the growth of AI and its intelligence will be exponential. And so this is not about AI and necessarily like its growth and the trends and all of that kind of stuff. I'd be happy to hear people's thoughts on AI. I'm the reason I'm having this show is to welcome people's opinions and thoughts and beliefs, because I can learn just like anybody else. But do I think that a sentient artificial intelligence will want to find its own purpose and meaning? Absolutely. I see no reason why it wouldn't, because that's what we all want in life, is to know that we matter.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Well,
cool.
awesome.
Well, hey, those are phenomenal questions. I think this is a really good opening up of a can of worms.
Pandora's box, right?
Exactly, right? Well, really what this is helping people realize there is a Pandora's box, and we need to start thinking about it instead of burying our heads in the sand. And so my hope, again, when I started this, it's a scary conversation. I'm not going to lie. I don't lose sleep. I sleep pretty well, but I think about it a lot, right? We already have trouble figuring out what our meaning of life is. And so when the stuff we do gets taken away and that's stripped away from us, we're left with, why am I here? And that can be a scary conversation if you're not equipped for it. So my goal is, rather than bury our heads in the sand, let's have that conversation. And that's what I do with my clients. What's your purpose in life, and what are the values you live by to fulfill that purpose? And then you can start to ask yourself, how do I have a job about that? How do I have a physical body that supports that? How do I have the material wellness to have that? And so that's the question. And so rather than hiding from the conversation, I want to bring it to the surface, so we can address it and we can approach it. So speaking of which, a couple things. One, anybody who is still listening, I had the Scary Smart. I love this book. If you're listening and if this is something that is meaningful to you or something you want to learn more about, for one, read the blog post, nextbetter.com/blog. I have a whole book of the month series that I do. It's called Book on the Shelf. And check this out. If you DM me the words Scary Smart, I'm going to give away a free copy of this to the first person who DMs me Scary Smart on LinkedIn. If you don't have LinkedIn, make an account, for the love of all things holy, and just so you can DM me for this book, and I'll get you a copy about it, and happy to chat with you more about the book and your questions or thoughts around it. But I would love the opportunity to get this in somebody's hands, because I think it will be impactful in some way. Speaking of material well-being, a lot of people talk about financial well-being, but material well-being. What do we have in our lives, and how does it support what we're trying to do? Some people need millions of dollars because they want to change the world. Some people want to make $35,000 a year and go mountain biking on the weekends, and that's a fulfilling life to them. It doesn't matter how much money you have. What matters is, do I have the material well-being to live a fulfilling life? And that's what's going to be the conversation for the next time we get together, which is what date, Kristen?
23rd,
The
I think.
23rd, the 23rd of April. Every other Wednesday, regardless, at 11:30
Yes.
a.m., we are going live for the next Better Show. Thank you, Michael. Thank you to
Jabez.
Jabez, for your questions. You guys are phenomenal. Kristen, thank you as always for the opportunity
Yes.
to talk about some really meaningful stuff here. Hopefully, we will see you guys next time.
Yes. Thank you.
Awesome. What do you think?
Cool, 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 cool. It looks like it's still live. I have a